Hello my students. Today I am going to tell you about animal communications. Communications, if we say in a very simple way, talking between animals, or in case of animal behavior, if we say it is a process where information is passed from one animal to another animal. The animal which is sending the information is called sender, and the animal which is receiving the information is called receiver. And this way it causes change in the response of the receiving animal. In a very clear term, you can say it is a transfer of information from one or a group of animals to one or more other animals that affects the current or future behavior of the receiver. So we are going to discuss the different forms of communications in among the animals in this lesson. The expected outcomes from this lesson is that we will be able to know different means of social communications in animals. At the same time, we will become familiar with different sensory modes of animal communications. And also, we will understand that there are different types of behaviors for which some specific communication forms are required. Here you can see two dogs, they are barking at each other. So this is not a very modest way of talking, but they are communicating. And at the same time, in most of the cases, we can see that people, in case of human being, they communicate through some vocal modes, by language, through languages. Animals also, they communicate through some vocal mode. But it is not always true that we should communicate through only vocal modes. There are different other modes are there. We have around 4 different modes of communications, and throughout the animal kingdom, these 4 communications are equally available in all animals. These are mainly auditory communications, visual communications, tactile communications, and chemical communications. Of these, let us discuss the first one, which is visual communications. Visual communication involves signals that can be seen. That is why it is visual. Here in the picture you can see the peacock tail that is expanded, and the beauty of the tail is delivered to some females, peahen, so that the female get attracted and they can go for reproduction. In the second picture you can see a dog is having a very appealing behavior. Dogs, they can perform different kinds of behavior to satisfy the owner or satisfy the opposite individual. This is called appeasement, and this is a visual communication that dog can successfully set up with the receiver. Not only that, this kind of visual communications, the other different ways are there through which the visual communications are made possible. These types of signals, visual signals, include gestures, facial expressions, body postures, and coloration. Here, for example, coloration, the birds, this is an example of birds and a fruit plant. This fruit plant having the color, these fruits having the color which is due to anthocyanin. So when the anthocyanin is there, the fruits get turned to this type of coloration, and that color attracts the bird. In an experiment, it was found that when there is no anthocyanin, the birds are not being attracted. But when the anthocyanin is there, the birds can receive the signal that the fruit is ready for ready to take as a food, and they visited fruit. So the color anthocyanin that is giving the color is the mode of communication for the bird to understand that the fruit is ready for taking as a food. And this is an interesting finding where a Panamanian golden frog can communicate to its other members by waving the hand. It's called gentle waving of the hand. So there you can see the frog is waving the hand to communicate with the other members of the species, and this is done mostly to communicate with the female partners. So this is how a very interesting finding where, like human being, they wave their hand, hi, hello, and that way they communicate to the other members of their species, own members of the species. And I should not tell you that you understand cat tail can speak many things. Here you can see I am happy to see you, the tail position. I am interested, you can see the tail position. I am crazy about you, the wavy position of the tail. So in each and every case, the cat tail gives a different message. This is a visual information, visual communication. And this kind fellow, what it is trying to tell you, you can explain. This trying to tell you that, can I get in, or may I get a place, or what you are taking, can you give me, or something. So this look gives you tells you many things, and you will be interested to communicate with the dog. So this is how these are called visual communication. And when we are talking about dogs, it is, I should tell you that the dogs have maximum postures they can exhibit to communicate, and they are very expert in doing that. You can see here some of the postures, that alert, suspicious, anxious, threatened, angry. What you cannot say, everything is there. So even I love you, don't stop, this is also there. So all these communications the doggy can make through different positions, and they make it, they are so intelligent and clever, they can make it very successfully. Next is the auditory communication. In auditory communication, mainly the communication is based on sound, and it is widely used in the animal kingdom. Auditory communication is particularly important in birds, who use sounds to convey warnings, attract mates, defend territories, and coordinate group behaviors. Even some birds produce very beautiful bird songs. They modulate, they change their vocalizations that are relatively long and melodic, and tend to be similar among the members of a species. I will share a video with you where the bird songs, how they modulate, that is the, you can see the saregama or whatever the music scales are there, you will find there. And this song or the modulation is based on the maturity of their age. Say for adult birds, they have different modulations, because that song by the adult bird will attract the female mates. Similarly, the young birds, they have different modulations, because they need that particular song or the sound to call their parents. Depending on such all these things, the bird, they can successfully communicate to their other partners through auditory communication. Not only that, even the frogs can also very successfully communicate with their peers. There is a subject called sonotaxonomy. Sono means sound, taxonomy means classification. In case of sonotaxonomy, the frogs are classified. Actually, the subject has been developed based on the sound or auditory modulation of frogs. The frogs, they have so unique sound that they can be identified, their species can be identified following the different what is called scales pitch of the sound. So the frogs can very perfectly create a sound which can be identified by other members that this frog is from their family. And this is also they do for mating. Here in this bird you can see they use different sound for to repulse, to avoid the rivals. Here the number of intrusions per hour, when they play back the sound, the particular sound of the white-throated sparrow bird, the rivals visiting or frequency is reduced compared to the control where this sound was not played. And it means that they are not only using their sound auditory skills to attract their partners, but also to avoid their predators or to keep their rivals away from their interest, from their members. And another most interesting example is dolphins. Dolphins can identify individuals. Like human being, we identify individuals by name. Dolphins can also identify individuals by their sound. And the sounds that created by each individual is so specific that you can say they can be named by the way of they create the auditory identity. So this is one of the very typical or specific character features of dolphin. As we know that individual dolphins can create their specific sound, it is also possible that dolphin can echolocalize any object which is situated at a specific distance. They can create the frequencies, sound waves which hit the animal and returns to them, and they can easily analyze at what distance the animal is situated and what size of the animal it is and what speed it is moving. So this is called echolocalization by dolphin. And the third one is the tactile communication, and the popular words which we generally use is keep in touch. Hello my friend, keep in touch. So keep in touch, this is having a great meaning. And this meaning is that you have to communicate, you have to keep a communication. And if we say in animal behavior, the communication through the use of touch is called tactile communication. And it is a major form of communication, primate communication, that is practiced by the primates during the grooming of their peers. Here you can see the horse. This horse is one of the animal. They used tactile communication for social grooming. And you might have observed that monkeys, they are generally social animal, and they have well developed social behaviors, grooming behaviors, which are based on the tactile communication. The dominant male generally enjoys the tactile care from the subordinate monkey. Not only that, the parents also enjoys exhibits the tactile behavior to the growing young ones. And here you can see another example, tandem running in ants. In case of ants, what they do, the antenna are locked, and the locked antenna in their position, they move from one place to another place. This is called tandem running in case of ants. This is also a kind of a tactile communication. And fourth and last one is the chemical communication. In case of chemical communication, the main role is played by the pheromones. A pheromone is a chemical that is secreted and it uses a signal to trigger a response in another individual of the same species. We need to remember that the chemical communication is very much species specific. Pheromones are especially common among social insects such as ants and bees. Pheromones may attract the opposite sex, raise an alarm, mark a food trail, or trigger other more complex behaviors. Here I have given a list of the examples how the pheromone plays some role in animals. In the first picture you can see the ants. They create a pheromone trails which they laid down to direct others into the colony, which is the source of food. When a food source is reached, ants will deposit pheromones on both the outgoing and return legs of their trip, building up the trail and attracting more ants to collect the food. So this is how the ants can develop the communication with their other members through using the pheromone. And many times it's a chemical passport. It acts as a chemical passport to identify individual animals, female groups, or members of a family. The specific pheromone or the chemical can be used as an identity or a passport by other individuals to identify each own family members. This is so specific. Again, a personal scent often is used to establish territorial boundaries. In the next slide, we will see that how the coyotes they use the pheromone or some kind of chemicals to establish the territory of their place. And as you have seen, it can perform different functions. The chemicals or pheromones perform different functions. Out of all these functions, the most basic one is related to sex. That example is the best example is the insects. In insects, maximum insects, they use pheromones to communicate with their female partners for reproduction. Then again, young fish, they although reared separately, they use scent to identify members of the same species, to collect them, to make the group that is called the schools. They form the schools. And finally, when some fish is hurt, they release a chemical to communicate other members to alarm about the danger. So this is a bunch of example I can share with you. I have shared with you how the chemical or pheromones they play role in communicating with for different information. And here in the first case you can see the minnows. These minnows are there very freely. They are moving when some of the alarm substance are not released into the aquarium. But when this substance released into aquarium, these fishes they climb to a particular corner of the aquarium. So they can sense that there some substances are already released and which is not a very friendly substance. Similarly, sex pheromones, I told you that in case of insects, it is very commonly and widely used. And this is the example of territory behavior. Coyotes, like the family dog, use urine to mark the boundaries of their territories. Pheromones gather animals, for example, the ladybugs here, like the fishes in the previous slide I told you. Here ladybugs together, to make them together for different reasons. And this is the example of squirrels. So among the animals, the squirrels, they sprinkle their mates with the urine to mark them that they are the members of the family. And you will be surprised to know that the ants, how they identify their family members, because a species of ants, you will find in different colonies, guild or groups, but these groups are from different different origins. So how the species identify their own family members, and this is possible only through the chemical substances they share. So this is how the ants they find their own members, family members by using the chemicals. Although we have got 4 different types of communications, and all these 4 communications can establish the communications between two individuals of a species, we need to know that the communications, all these communications can work together. More than one communications may work together to establish a particular communication very successfully. The best example is honeybee. In case of honeybee, we know that they communicate to the peers regarding the source of the food through waggle dance, and waggle dance is a kind of visual communications, but at the same time they touch or they make communications, contact with the other members while dancing. The bee, while dancing, it make a contact with the other members, and since it is an insect, it releases the chemicals to others that the particular direction this kind of food is available. So this is a combination of chemical, tactile and auditory components. So this is the best example to tell that more than one type of communication forms may be required to establish a successful communication for a particular purpose. It is not only these 4 communications, there is one more communication which is called electric communication, and this is also not established, this is not also very common among maximum majority of animals, but there are few animals, for example electric fish. In the electric fish, they release very weak electric current and they create a electric field around them. This electric field either help to avoid any predatory action or other objects which may harm to the fish. So whatever this weak electric field alert the other objects, or it may create a communication or presence of unwanted objects within the range of the electric field. So this is how the electric communication takes place. So my students, what we have learned today, we have learned that communication between animals may take place through different ways, and these ways are mainly the visual, auditory, chemical, tactile, or maybe combination of 1 or 2 or all of these different modes. And in all these cases, we have one receiver and a signaler to bridge the communications, and every time the best way is to follow one or more types of communications to establish a successful communication among the animals. Thank you very much.